Hello, welcome to part 3 of the stream, where I shall be continuing with my project from yesterday and putting together. So from yesterday, I've got all of these pieces of wood now that are glued together in the various different sections, as you can see, and the plan is to go through and cut them into strips like this, that I can then start thinking about turning into an actual chopping board. Since yesterday, I've also spent some time with the hand saw, gone through and produced a number of these. These are just slices off some of the logs I had earlier, the ones that came from my parents' garden. And the idea is I'm going to cut out the squares you may or may not be able to see on these, and use these as sort of centerpieces for the boards, for the chopping boards, because they look a bit more interesting than the other pieces I've got. But first, I think the first thing to do is going to be to make a lot more of these narrow strips, and start from there. So let's turn this miter saw back into a table saw and get going. Down. That across, there we go. And I'm actually learning how to use this thing now, which is quite nice. Over. And then plug it back in. Now a quick game of where did I leave the safety goggles? I've forgotten those and they're rather important. Okay, so last time I took off a piece this thick, which I think is probably a good thickness. It's possibly a touch thinner than I would ideally like the end boards to be, but I think I've only got so much wood, so I might have to go with this. And we'll see how it goes in the end. Maybe make it a tiny bit thicker, maybe not. I'm not sure. So for now we are. Yep, that's in about the right place. That's in the right place. I'm going to measure that again, actually, make sure that is still the same thickness. Yes, that's the same thickness as I used yesterday for the first piece I did. Push stick so I don't lose any fingers. I'm still tempted to make this a little bit thicker, so the end pieces come out slightly thicker than this, just so I've got a bit more room to play with when I'm trying to flatten the whole thing afterwards. Not sure. Oh, and I appear to have just drawn the first blood from this entire project, and it wasn't anything to do with the table saw. I think I caught myself on some random piece of wood or something when I was putting stuff together. So, oh well, I was doing so well until then. So yeah, let's make this a tiny bit thicker, like just a few millimetres. I don't want to make too much of a change here. Yeah, about that much. I think that's probably now a better, more sensible thickness. Although, of course, I should probably have made at least another one at the same thickness as the first one, because the entire board has to be the thickness of the thinnest piece. So this might be slightly unnecessary. But let's get started and see how this goes. Why is Discord pinging at me? That seems like a useful thing to have up as well. I can find it. Okay, kind of unrelated. So now I've cut that one down to a point where I'm starting to now regret having made it slightly, making pieces slightly thicker, especially as well. Them broke when they fell on the floor. Yeah, I don't think I glued these together very well because they've both broken when they dropped off the end of the table saw, so I'm going to need to re-glue these at the very least. And yeah, it's a bit disappointing. I was hoping the glue would be a lot stronger than that, but worst case, at least I'm getting all the pieces now, so I can start gluing them together and trying to make appropriate shapes. And actually, given what I realised about how I'd not got things set up last time, that might actually work quite well and be vaguely useful. But yes, this piece now is so thin. I think I might just. I'll make this a little bit narrower and then try and essentially turn this into two pieces. I don't think I can do much else with this one. So that'll trim that, and then we'll have some interesting. I think I'm going to have to try and snap this. Not there. Yeah, we see not got very good coverage from the glue on there, which is interesting. That should, or is it because there's still? Is that the wax or the glue? I'm not sure. This hasn't gone together very well at all. Which is not. Yeah, I was expecting the glue to be much stronger. Yeah, like that one, which I can't break. So I don't know why this has been so bad, but still, I'll clean this up and salvage what I can from it, and then hopefully the other ones will have gone together a bit better because that's a bit disappointing. I mean, I thought I used a good amount of glue, but it just doesn't seem to have stuck very well. Now, second thought, I'm not going to do that on the table saw, I'll do that with the mitre saw later. Rest of big pieces, however, these I am going to do everything. And again, a little bit wider. Let's do some maths on this and try and work out what's a sensible size to make it. Okay, so the shortest piece is 9.5 centimetres. I make it two. Yeah, if I make it 2.5 centimetres. Probably the minimum I want to go for, and that'll get me 3 pieces out of it and a little bit of leftover at the end. There are some that are just over 10 centimetres, but that's still only 3 pieces because of the amount you lose to just to the width of the blade. This end piece is quite a bit longer, so I'll get 4 out of that, but that's not so useful. Okay, we'll just see how we do. We'll get 3 out of this one. That's a bit worrying. If I only end up with 9 strips from all of these, I don't know if it's going to be enough. Oh well, let's carry on. Not much else I can do at this point. again, all these pieces seem to have broken when they fell off. And yeah, okay, yes, I dropped them, but they should be a lot stronger than that. But it does mean I've got a lot of these three size pieces now. So I'll work through and see what I can make from those, I suppose. The gluing doesn't seem to have worked very well. I don't know whether the joins were gappy, or whether I didn't use enough glue or what. But I mean, I thought I used plenty and it squeezed out nicely, but it doesn't seem to be very happy. So this is the final piece I had left over from the end of the last one. All these pieces along here are now much too thin to be used again. So yeah, I can't supposed to break it where I expect to be able to, but in fact the whole thing is reasonably strong. Oh, no, there we go, it goes there. And again, there. Yeah, as I say, these haven't glued together as well as I would expect them to. But this piece is big enough that I can cut that again with the mitre saw in a bit and get that down to be a useful piece as well. So we'll hang on to that. Some of these are going to be useful, some of them not so much. Oh yeah, one more. So got halfway through over here. I did one of the pieces and then forgot there was a second one. So let's get that one done now. Yeah, you're right. I can't read your name because it's in a funny colour over the top of on the thing here. It's Type 1-2, which is supposed to be pretty good wood glue, but it doesn't seem. Yeah, it just hasn't set strongly enough. So, my suspicion is that there were. I mean, looking at some of these pieces on this side, it looks absolutely fine, but on this side you can see a bit of a gap there. So I'm wondering if the cuts weren't clean and with the correct angles, and so it's just not filled in. The glue hasn't filled in properly. And yeah, if we look at the end here, we can see where this end seems to have got glue, but this end doesn't. So maybe my suspicion is that I just simply didn't use enough glue. I'll have to. I'll re-glue it. I've got all the pieces now. So essentially, it's a shame that this has happened, but I think it's fixable. It's just going to be a bit of a faff, and mean I'm going to have to spend longer doing the next glue up and trying to get it to work properly. Which is, yeah, it's frustrating, but not insurmountable. Unfortunately, I think as long as I get all the pieces together, it doesn't matter that I'll lose the table saw because I'm going to have to take it back on Monday, and I don't have any time. And unfortunately, I don't have as much free time tomorrow as I was expecting to have, so I've got to get everything done today. But once I've got all the pieces cut, assembly and then final flattening and stuff, I can do with tools I already own. So it's not quite as time pressured. Although, given that these are supposed to be Christmas presents, I do still have to get the whole thing done by December, or by the end of December. So yeah, this might be pushing it a little bit. But still, we'll carry on, see how it goes, and hopefully it'll all work out nicely. Resin glue I've not heard of. Gorilla Glue isn't Gorilla Glue typically a super glue, a cyanoacrylate sort of type glue? As opposed to a wood glue. I feel like it's for a completely different purpose. Although yes, I imagine it might be stronger. It's also possible that the sort of 20 hours setting time I gave these wasn't sufficient, and if I'd given it another day, then it would be quite a lot stronger. I'm not really sure, unfortunately. The problem with being a noob is that you don't know all these things. So to sort of experiment and try and find out what works. that piece appears to have been much better. Although I've lost one of them. Where's the third one of these? Was it this one? Yeah, I did drop one of them as I was making them, and it didn't break. So these ones seem to be better and actually stronger. So maybe I'll use these as the backbone of the board when I build them. See how it goes. Yeah, and I wouldn't be too averse to paying a bit more for a better type of glue, but I don't. Yeah, it's not knowing what you're getting is the problem. I was in not knowing what the best one is to get, and I got the impression from other channels that Type Bond is pretty well thought of. So I don't know. It's hard to know what to go for when you only have a vague idea of what you're doing. Now, while this is still set, and before I go on to the next step, I think I wanted to take a few more pieces out of these. This is the wood I was using before that I was thinking, right, this would make a good, what's the word? Edging piece, I suppose, for the to go around the outside. But I have an additional cunning plan for this, because I've got quite a lot of it. My thought is that when I cut all of these pieces, the round pieces off the logs, into squares, they're all going to be slightly funny sizes. So if I then stick some of this onto the outside of them, because it's a less exciting wood, but it looks reasonably nice. If I stick some of this onto the outside, then I can turn it into, and I can make them into the same size to fit the grid that I'm making with all the other pieces. So I shall be doing that, although actually on hindsight, maybe I won't be, because, no, we won't be with this one, because actually looking at this, I forgot I was doing the end grain. I was thinking, yes, if I cut it down there, then I'll have a lovely long strip, but no, that's a face grain, not an end grain, so that idea is completely out. Forget that one. pretend I didn't say that, because that was me being a muppet. But we'll forget about these pieces of wood for now, and just stick them down and somewhere out of the way. Yes, I think probably using more would have been a good idea. It's one of those things where the more the messier. Right, so the plan was, the next thing I was going to do would be to take these pieces and basically square them off. So at the moment, all these blocks should be the same width. At least that's the theory. We've got 46 and a bit, 90 something. That sounds about right. 14. Yeah, so they're about call it 4.5. If it's 4.5 each, and then a little bit more, that'd be 8 and a 9. 9, 4, 13, 4. Yeah, that seems to be. Yeah, these all seem to be pretty much even at a slightly where's focus? At a slightly odd distance, because it was somewhat arbitrary, because this table saw is not precise, rather upsettingly. So I'm guessing a little bit with my measurements here, but as long as they're all the same, and if I can then run along here and make these square, that'd be really convenient. Can I do that? Yeah. So in fact, these two pieces, these are square. So I need to run So I just need to run the table saw along and take off the excess all the way along here, bring it down to that level. All of those, and ideally exactly the same size for all these broken pieces as well. Now these are a bit smaller, so I think probably putting these through the table saw is not the best idea. They are smaller than the blade though, so that means once I've got these ones, once I've done the ones that didn't break, I can go through and do all of the broken ones with a mitre saw, and that's actually going to be easier. So that's, in a way, it's a blessing in a rather good disguise, should we say? So I've got this is a 4-piece here. Is that something? Yeah, I can still get the mitre saw through that. It's only these unbroken six long pieces that won't. Okay, so that again is about 4.5. So all of these pieces, if I cut them off with the table saw to be a straight line all the way along here, just at exactly the edge of these two pieces, then I'll have some nice. Then all of these will be nice squares. Admittedly, a fairly silly size, but I can at least then work with that as a standard for the whole board. All right, so let's give this a shot. So I need to. Do I have a broken one that's got the? Yes, I do. Yeah, so here we go. This broken one here has got an end piece that is one of the actually properly square ones. So I've put that up against there. Yeah, those are exactly the same size. So using that, I can probably shuffle the fence into exactly the right place here. And because this means I'm going to have my hands right next to the blade, I'm going to unplug the table saw because I'm a little bit paranoid. I'd like to finish this with as many fingers as I start with, and I think that's understandable. So now I can go pull that out a bit, and I go right. I want to cut that. I want that to cut there. So I pull this back in. I can put the guide right up against the edge there. And now, when I put all the rest of these pieces through, that should cut them off in exactly the right place and get them to be exactly the same width as this one and have everything. And everything should be spot on. Yeah, new tools would be nice. I've ended up having to hire this one because mostly, not so much because I can't afford it, although to be honest I think I need a little bit more YouTube income before I could really justify it, but mostly because I just don't have anywhere to use as a workshop and to store these sort of things. So, I mean, as you can clearly tell from the background here, I'm out doing this in the garden. If I had a decent sized garage or something like that, then yeah, sure, maybe I'd consider buying some of these bigger tools and maybe slightly more accurate versions than this one. But I don't have anywhere to put any of this, so it's tough. I just have to make do with what I've got. So, which is a shame. I mean, it would be nice to have not necessarily professional quality tools because those would be horrifically expensive, but better than the ones I've got. Better than what I've got. Right. So these are the 4 pieces that I want to cut down to the right width, so that they'll match up with all of the smallest pieces, and then I'll have everything should be on all of the big pieces will then be on a nice grid, and so I can work with those. I just need to then flip the table saw over and use the miter saw to actually bring them all down, and then to cut up all the smaller pieces, and also all of the round pieces into actual proper squares, so they'll, once again fit into the grid. Renting is easier, yes, but you have less control over what you get. You just have to go with whatever they provide, and you don't know what condition it's going to be in when you get it. And to be honest, I don't know what condition this is in either, even though I've already got it, because I don't have much of a reference for it. But yeah, I suspect it's not in perfect condition. Right, so let's get cutting. Yeah, that is out of the way of the blade, just. I unplugged it for safety, didn't I? Turns out unplugging for safety means it doesn't then turn on when you push the button. Who'd have thought it? That was me thinking, oh no, after all this talk about it, I don't know what condition it's in, have I actually broken the thing? No, I've just unplugged it because I didn't want to lose any fingers. Right, here we go. That worked nicely, except the table saw tried to eat one of the pieces of wood. Other than that went pretty well. One. So there we go. Now we've got all sides are nice and straight, nice and even. And in theory, if I've done it right, which you never know, I might have done, all of these blocks are are pretty much perfectly square. Now, I am a little concerned about this piece on the end here. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's been quite a lot of tear out because this is. Again, with the hiring, you get the blade that's on the saw when you get it, and also not really knowing what I'm doing, I wasn't sure whether I should. I didn't know enough to make sure I got the right sort of blade. But yeah, there's a bit of tear out on this and a bit of sort of dodgy edges. So, well, we shall have to see how it goes. I think there might be a little bit of trying to fill gaps in with wood glue and sawdust in my future. I've also noticed this edge isn't quite smooth either, so. I feel like I might need to run this through again, the other way round, but that's not going to work without me moving the fencing, so I'll do the other three pieces first. Yeah, this edge isn't quite perfect. Yeah, I do think I do need to clean both edges up. Which, that means I should... means things aren't going to be quite square, because I based this cut on assuming it was going to be square. Let's move this out a smidge. And then fix it afterwards for the other one as best as possible. Right, so that's going to give me enough distance to then clean up the other side to get that down to exactly the right size. Okay, 3 more of these to go, and then I'll do the other side too. I didn't think that plan all the way through, did I? Because I measured against these pieces, so if I move it out again, it's not going to cut quite up against those. So we're going to have to go for slightly narrower pieces than I was expecting to. That's a shame, but not the end of the world. Okay, so let's find, this is the piece I used to measure before, so let's do that again. And once again, I am going to unplug it, and hopefully this time I'll remember to unplug it, plug it back in again before I try again. So this time, right, that goes there, there, snug up against it. Tighten it up. Right. So I'll do this one again and just take off a shaving off the side of it, and then work through and do the rest of it. Oh well. Yeah, I think the blade probably is a bit dull. That's sort of the point is that you get what you're given. I'm again first time I've used a table saw, so it's my first time. I didn't really know what I was looking for, and I think the blade probably needs to be a bit sharper, ideally, and a bit more. Probably a few more teeth would help as well, rather than the relatively small number of teeth it's got going across there. Having more teeth would probably help. My other consideration there is that this is probably designed as a job site table saw, so it's probably designed for people who are building houses, not building something small and precise like cutting boards. So it'd be great for splitting an 8-foot long plank of wood, but it's not so great for doing fine detail cuts on something where you're going to try and make it look nice at the end. Plug it in, that would help. Yeah, they're not too bad. Now bear in mind, each of these should now have one straight edge and one not quite straight edge. So, there we go. So I'd say that's coming together. I think I'm making progress here. We've got some good straight edges. I just need to now pull it in a tiny bit, go down the other side, and get the other side straight as well. And make sure I get it the right way round as well, so I don't try straightening an edge that's already straightened and leave the other one not straight. That'd be very unfortunate. Bring that in slightly. And this one's pretty good actually, but it's not perfect. But actually, this first piece, I think this was. I tried to. I think I had all of these sides resting against the mat when I glued it up. So that's what these are as straight as you get things when you just lie them next to each other and then stick a clamp around them. This side, on the other hand, is the one to run the table saw along, and it's actually really quite smooth. I can't it feels slightly rough because it's wood, but the joins don't feel any more rough than any of the rest of it. So I think that's done pretty well. Now just that's it. The other side. Right, those felt like the messiest ones I've done yet. Yes, having the man cave with all the tools would be very, very nice. But as you say, you just get very, very expensive. But yeah, I think it would be totally worth it if I had the cave to put all the stuff in. No, but unfortunately, that's where the problem lies. I don't have anywhere to put all of this. And all I have is a cupboard to keep all of the tools in, and then I come outside when I want to do anything major with them. So turn this back over, and then realise I've got the riding knife in place. Oops. Never mind. No harm, no foul, right? Fix that up. That's a lot of sawdust come out of there from the lot clogged up in there from the table saw, but never mind. It's all a very nice red colour, isn't it? Let's move you again. Where have I got enough cable to put you? Let's try around here. This will be much cute. Okay, so the next step, as I was saying earlier, well, a possible next step actually would be to go through and chop all these other shorter pieces down to have it be the right width. I think that's probably going to be quite worthwhile. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to need a clamp for this to use as a stop lock. There we go, clamp. Now again, I'm going to be messing around close to the blade and measuring off it, so I'm going to unplug. Again, paranoid. There's a million safety interlocks on this thing, but even so, I'm still paranoid because I like my fingers to be where they are. Yeah, I hope so. Thank you. I hope it will come together nicely. I put in the effort, but as I say, being a bit of a noob, I don't know whether the effort is going to be as rewarded as you would hope, given the levels of it. Let's start off with one of these finished piece. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to be chopping both sides. Yeah, let's start. I was going to say I'll use this as the measurement again. How's it compared to this? Right, it's slightly, yeah, this is slightly thinner because, as you remember, I did. Right, here you are. This piece is slightly, the finished in inverted commas, piece is slightly narrower because I went through and did the one cut and did another cut. So if I matched up to this one first, then I can do my first cuts. and then do the second cuts with it to match this one. So I think this one. So I think that's probably going to be the way to do it. So laid out. If I bring the blade down, and then immediately discover that because this bit sticks out, I don't have quite the clearance there if I want it. So let's find an even more broken piece that is exactly the right size and isn't going to get in the way. How about this one? Yes, that's perfect. Right, this one actually this has still got the waxy bits on the back of it, so this is a piece I haven't even remotely cut into the right size, but it is exactly the right width. So put that in place, bring the blade saw down, push it up against the blade, then I can put this clamp in on the other side, and hopefully, if I had 3 hands, this would be a lot easier. So that's there, that goes there, and then the clamp goes here. Of course, you probably can't see what I'm doing very well, can you? No, you can't. So the idea is, bring the blade down, put the piece of wood right up against the blade, so I've got that measured, and then put the clamp right up against the side of the wood, and then in theory this is now a repeatable cut size, and I can come through here and just repeatedly come down and go chunk, 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 and take all the other pieces down to being exactly the right width on one side, and then I need to do the other side as well, but that's okay. So there's those. I lost these pieces because I kept dropping them and breaking them. Or rather, I kept not gluing them properly and breaking them, because to be honest, the dropping isn't the problem here. What are you? Oop, don't be one in, please. I don't want that. And so are you. Okay. All these pieces then I need to go through and chop like that. Fortunately, I have a chop saw, and it's kind of what they're designed for. So, I come along here, I'll blade down. I'm going to have to move you though a little bit because you're kind of in the way. There we go, I'll put you there. That's a reasonably good view, I think. So, let's check chat, see if anyone's saying, no, don't do it like that, that'll go horribly. Food. Yeah, I managed to get food in before I started the stream. That's why it started at 2 rather than, say, 12. That's probably a good thing, because my internet went down at 1:30, so if I'd been streaming then, it would have been really annoying. That's wedged in there nicely. Put it in place. Can't put all of this wood here because it'll be in the way of the saw blade, so saw body as it comes down. So I'll put them over here on the inside, around the back. Right, here we go. No, plug it in. I mean, safety is definitely important, and I don't regret any of these times I've unplugged it when I've then been going in and actually touching the blade with my actual meat pointy things. But I keep forgetting to plug it back in. Right, so hold that there. Have that safety engaged or disengaged. It's worked in that it made a cut where I measured to, but it hasn't worked in that it didn't make that whole side flat, so I must have screwed up with my measuring somewhere. Where's my known good piece? Here it is. Yeah, I need to take off a little bit more than that. I just have this vision of these pieces getting gradually narrower and narrower as I try desperately to make them perfect, until eventually there's nothing left of them at all. Let's try that again. Yeah, so I've moved the stop block thing in a tiny bit, so I can take a little bit more off. And now that's perfectly straight. It's a little bit smaller, but what can you do? It's going to happen. I guess I now need to do the opposite side as well. And get that. I don't think this side is very nearly perfect already. So I'm hoping that by just bringing it down in exactly the same place, I can just trim it a tiny bit. Given that the thicker part is the end piece, so I think that should work. We'll find out in a second. No, that missed by a significant distance. That must be. Yes, that's because these ends aren't quite perfect. These aren't perfect 90-degree corners. So I've been brought up by the lack of accuracy on the something in here at least when I'm trying to make cuts. Oh, it just occurred to me actually. I'm not sure I checked that the chop saw was perfectly centered, so let's try that. Let's check that first. Unplug again, because, you know, all the obvious reasons. If I bring this down, fairly close, and that's pretty good. Now, so how do you rotate? Now, that's rotating that way. How do you rotate the whole thing this way? Well, it does clearly pivot. I just don't know how. Say it clearly pivots. I'm not sure it does actually. It looks like it should because there's a what's the name? Degrees marked around here. All of this is very, very solid and very, very attached. So I don't think this actually does rotate. It's close to 90 degrees. It isn't quite there. And that might be why I was having a problem. And it might be too late now. I might just have to go with whatever I can get. That way then. So there. To this side, no, that is 92. Yeah, that is a very good. That's a good 90 degrees. I don't think I can make that more accurate, even if I could adjust it. I think I'm just going to have to do what I can. Maybe I'll sand these pieces down to make them a bit smoother before I start gluing them. But I think there's not much more I can do with this to make it better, unfortunately. Yeah, funny you should say that, Kong. That is literally what I just thought of. True. It does. Yes, it does. It does docks me a little bit into what sort of general area I'm in. Although I did have to drive a bit to pick this one up. So, but yeah, c'est la vie. I think I'm currently not hugely worried about that being a small enough YouTuber that I don't think anyone. I hope nobody's trying to actively hunt me down and find me. But I suppose you never know. This is the internet after all. Next piece. This one is nice and flat on the back, so I think sanding that is easily going to be enough to sort it out. If I bring this down here, how much am I going to be losing? Yeah, that looks about right actually. I'm pretty happy with that one. So yeah, let's carry on. I can't stop and overthink it, or I'll never get anywhere. There we go. That. How's that piece? How's the others? Pretty good. Yeah, I think this is probably going to be okay. I might try and knock this back a tiny bit. That was more than a tiny bit. That there, I think is probably about right. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. Oh, now I've got a small one. The chop saw does feel a lot safer than the table saw. I feel more confident with using it, which is probably, I mean, Not to the extent that I'm going to be too cocky with it, but it does feel a bit less ridiculously dangerous than a table saw. And I say that, still using the push stick to hold things in place there. Not going to be absolutely stupid about this. Big piece that is the opposite part of the partner to the small piece, so I had a moment ago. So this one, I think, the blade is still going to be long enough to do this one, but only just. Yeah, it's going to need some sanding, but never mind. If it was easy, everyone would make them, right? Dust everywhere. Oh, stream died, did it? Oh, that's a shame. Maybe my internet's being dodgy again. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the sub. Didn't see it pop up because there's a slightly funky way I'm doing this, and it's on a laptop out of the way, so I can't see things as well as I normally can when I'm gaming. But thank you. I appreciate the sub. Yes, the chop saw gives me a lot more control over what I'm doing, which is great. Very much appreciated. Oh no, that's me some back to do. And it feels, and you're holding the wood very, very solidly still. It's not moving, and somehow that feels much safer. And the blade can only move in one way. Yes, there's a lot less. There's less freedom of movement, I think, because the blade can move up and down, but it can't move side to side. The wood can't move at all. Whereas when you're using the table saw, okay, the blade doesn't move, but the wood can go anywhere it wants. So it's a lot scarier. Also, the blade is kept much further away from, well, me. Okay, with that, that's now finished off all of those long multicoloured strips that I had. So the next step is all of these bits and pieces. And these are going to be, these are, as I say, these are the bits that I cut off the logs from Parents' Garden. So I spent some time after yesterday's stream, and then a bit more time this morning, using a handsaw and going through the logs, cutting off various pucks like this, as you can see in the pile over here. And that's. There we go. And so I then spent a moment as well with a ruler, just drawing out approximate squares on here to roughly where I think would get me allow me to use as much of this wood as possible. So around the edge of it, it's got all this stuff that's dry and rotten and crap, but the core wood in the middle, the pink stuff, is nice and sound and in good condition. So I reckon I can, if I cut it across round that's the square that hopefully you can see on the stream, then I can make these into basically pieces that will go in the middle, sort of feature pieces, because they've got more interesting grain, because this is the centre of the log, so you've got the actual circles of the grain and so on. And there's two types of wood I've used. Oh, here's one I made earlier. So I did this one yesterday. So I marked it out, cut it off. So this is in theory a nice square with some interesting grain pattern on it. So I'll use that as the to make sort of a centrepiece of the chopping board. So I'll get rid of that one because that's already been done. I've got this one as well. This piece I cut a bit too thin. I'm not sure whether this is going to be worth using, but to be honest, once I got to this point, I thought, well, I might as well. Doing the chop saw part is going to be absolutely trivial, so I might as well. But when I measure it against the other pieces I've cut already, you can see it's a bit on the thin side. So whilst this is probably probably just about an okay thickness for a chopping board. It's not going to be an okay thickness for a chopping board after it's lost a certain amount of its thickness to me tidying it up and cleaning it up. So I don't know if I'll use that one. This one I went to the opposite extreme because I wanted to make, because yeah, it's really, I'm not very good with a manual saw, so, and the saw I've got isn't very good either. So we're probably appropriately matched. But this one is a good chunk thicker than the other pieces. So this is a bit much, but at least this wood was free, so it doesn't. I don't feel too bad about wasting it a bit. So I'd rather cut these a bit too thick than a bit too thin. And I can always potentially try and make some more of these. Although after I've lost the chop saw, I don't know how I'd get the nice 90-degree angles all the way around here to the nice 90-degree cuts all the way around here to make sure it was a good flat, good square of wood. So that's going to be that might be tricky. But yeah, I can chop all those up, get them to the right size and shape, and go from there. Oh yes, Tristan makes an excellent point there. If you join the Discord and link your accounts, you get access to various things. Like you get videos a week early, you get access to the Factorio supporter server, and more benefits as and when we think of them, basically. Oh, and there's a private chat area as well. So yeah, very worth joining. Alright, so let's start slicing these up. The other notable thing about this is the wood, because once again there's a running theme here of I don't really know what I'm doing. So I didn't dry the wood very well, so it's got lots of cracks in it. So all of these places where I've drawn these in, it's that's basically pretty much the biggest square or rectangle I reckon I can get out of it. It doesn't have any of the cracks incorporated in it. I don't want cracks in the finished product. So we'll work through those and see how we go. Let's not put these on the side here where they're probably going to fall off. Let's put them on the floor where it's a little bit more stable. So I don't need the stop block anymore. For that. It's amusing me every time I throw something onto the lawn, a puff of sawdust comes up from the lawn. Right, so the idea is I'm going to try and get a nice straight truss across. That's a bit too big. Let's go for one of these side ones first. Yes, I'll try there. If I cut it off of there, then I can then just go in and do the rest of them, and I'll have a straight edge to press up against the back of the saw, so it'll be a lot more stable. That's oh well. Never mind. So let's go from here. This time I am using my hand to hold it, but it's a much bigger piece of wood this time, so I'm pretty sure that's safe. My hand is a good 2.5 inches, 3 inches away from the blade, and as previously mentioned, the blade isn't going to do anything funny. Yeah. And as I mentioned, this piece is broken immediately in half because that's where the crack was, or a crack was. There's more of them. So now I can put that. Now I can use that straight edge to butt this piece of wood up against the back of the saw, and that keeps it in. That means in theory I'll get perfect 90-degree corners. In practice, I probably won't because, as I mentioned, accuracy of the chop saw and stuff. But you know, it's an approximation. So there's another crack on the opposite side of here. So I'm going to come in here, basically right at the edge of the crack, and make it use as much of the wood as I can. Yeah, broken. More over here. It's getting down to the sort of size where I think actually I will use a bush stick to hold it in place, because I mean it's still probably okay. Well, in fact it still is okay, but it's getting close enough to the boundary of only being probably okay that I think I'd rather be safe. Rather be safe than sorry. Now we have a nice square piece with a nice nice pattern on it, so that'll hopefully look good when the thing's finished. It's a bit off centre, yes, but when the wood's this cracked, I'm just doing what I can with it. Now this one, oh, this is an end. This is the end of the log. Actually, I'm not sure whether I want to use this or not. So this piece, I mean, there is a reasonably nice patch there. It's about the right sort of thickness, but it's the end of the log, so this end of it's a bit cruddy. That said, if I find in amongst my offcuts are some shims. Here we go, some lovely shims here. I could use them to lift this up so this at the bottom of this is flat, and then just tape them on. To be honest, yeah, something like that, and that's going to raise this up so that I can then take it. So when I will then end up being able to use essentially cut this later when I come to flatten it. I can flatten it across like that, and potentially it'll be a worthwhile piece. Not sure, but I think it's worth a try. Let's get a straight edge. Try and decide whether that's about the right place to put it. About the right amount to shim it. That looks like about 90 degrees, I reckon. I think that's good. Actually, if I pull them in a little bit further, then these go in slightly past the end of the cut point where I'm going to put one of the cuts in. So that'll allow me to tidy that up fairly nicely, I think. Yeah, let's take them in place. Go from there. They don't need to be held particularly well because they're entirely sacrificial. But I'll go in and take out that one first because I think that's going to be the easy. Actually, no, let's do. I'm trying to think through the logic here. If I cut across here first, then that bit where I've estimated will no longer be appropriately. Well, I'm estimating a flat from there to there, and this point will disappear. If I cut this one, then it'll cut through where the tape is, and I'll lose the bits of tape. Not that's a problem, but that probably is actually going to be the best place to start. If I cut this one first, that was my original thought, but again, it's going to cut off most of that. I could cut this one first, but this is going to be difficult because it's a funny edgy bit, so I don't really want. I want to finish off with this one. Yeah, let's stick with plan A and do this one first. So cut about there. And that has, as I said, it's cut off half the shims, but they were completely sacrificial. I don't care about them. But I did keep a little bit of the shims on here, so I do actually have my 90 degrees there. Sorry, I do still have my measurement there. Now let's see. I've got to do this one now because of the shape of the because of where the flat side is. So I want to press up against the back of here. So come down about this far out. Down here, too far in. Yeah, that's about right. The push stick wasn't holding it steady enough. This is kind of wobbly. Another piece under here on the outside. That's a bit better. Yeah, that'll do. And of course, that's cut off my my blocks, but never mind. Take them back again to the bottom of it, and that's worked reasonably well. Now we're doing the big chunky side that I was saying I didn't want to do until later on, but that's okay. It is indeed now later on, so I'm going to have to do it sooner or later. Let's cut that one, yeah, about there. And the final cut here. How I'm going to make this flat, I have no idea. Okay, oh, there we go. Shim underneath the back of it there, like that. Well, actually, the shim this way doesn't matter so much because when I cut it, it's going to be at the tilt is in line with the direction of the cut, so it wouldn't actually matter. So let's do it. Right, and there we go. There's another piece. It's a bit funky on the back like that, but I don't know. Can you chop saw something like that? I'm pretty sure you can't. I don't think that's going to work. So I'm not even going to try. That would go horribly wrong. I'm pretty sure. But we've got the centre of the trunk and a nice row of rings coming out. So that's that's 3 pieces now. A jigsaw is a possibility. I do have a jigsaw, but I tend to find that jigsaws are absolutely terrible at producing vertical cuts because the blade tends to wander a bit. So you put the blade, you start cutting with the blade vertical like that, and then it just sort of flexes a little bit as you cut, and things go horribly wrong. So I don't really like using jigsaws for anything that's supposed to be for anything thicker than certainly not thicker than about 1 centimetre. It just tends. My experience is it tends to go badly. Nice chunk of wood. It's a shame it's about 50% thicker than I really wanted it to be because it is actually quite nice. I'm pleased with that one. It just means, I suppose it doesn't matter, it just means it's going to take a bit more flattening than some of the other bits would. So here's again another one with this piece also cracked quite significantly. So I'm on to the pink stuff now. This one cracked fairly significantly across there, but you know I can just cut it across there and have a reasonably nice piece, hopefully. This one, however, these are a bit smaller than the other ones, so I'm going to be using the stick a lot more to try and hold things in a safe place, and not cause myself some sort of horrific injury. The first cut is always the most difficult because you don't have a nice straight edge to press the back against, or to press against the back rather. So you sort of get it into about the right place and just try and hold it there. And that one doesn't want to cut. That one doesn't want to rest in the right place. Let's try. Over there. That didn't work. Nope. Damn your organic shapes. With some more wedges. I want that to be. I want it to be there. So put in kind of that. Helping? I don't think it is, but we'll see. Nope, it immediately moved. Right. Back to the masking tape. So, if I take this to the back of here at the sort of the correct angle, that. And another one on the front, vertical, that may not be horizontal. orthogonal, something like that. No, it's horrifically out of angle. Look at this. It's terrible. Yeah, I think that'll do. Now it becomes much easier because I've got that straight edge to press against the back. There we go. Another nice red pinkish cuboid. It's not quite as nice as the other ones because the sort of centre of the trunk isn't a bit more inside, but it cracked very close to the centre, so it's about the best I can get. Getting a bit small now. Safety stick. Right, another one. I feel like I'm getting the flow of it now. I think it's going a bit more sort of smoothly and easily. This one's a little bit thin, but again, I've already cut it out, cut it off the log, so I'm going to chop it up because this is the easy part of the process. Two more, nearly there. they're not quite the same size, are they? But I mean, each one is going to be a bespoke board anyway, so I don't think it matters too much. Yeah, exactly that. Your comment from probably a good few minutes ago about about jigsaws. Yes, they're good for big sheets of stuff that's not too thick. And especially if you're then going to tidy up the edges afterwards, they're pretty good for that. But yeah, not so great on thicker stuff. And I think I'd even if I do go, even if cutting a finger off would mean I would get on all kinds of dodgy channels, I think I'd rather just grow my channel a little bit more organically. Thank you. Not the next collab I want to be doing. Right. I think that's now all of the cutting to get the pieces down to about the right sort of sizes and shapes and so on. So I've now got everything. Everything is now about the same sort of thickness, roughly. I mean, I say very, very roughly. I'm look at the variety in those. That's just down to that's down to my my sawing technique or lack thereof. All these end pieces over here, which I'm going to forget about for now, and these pieces as well. We've got these pieces. These are all usable. All of this stuff, again, very, very usable. Even if I throw it on the floor from time to time. So, now I need to start just sort of thinking about how I want the boards to look. So I'll just grab something to put these on, or at least put any individual idea on. Myself a little bit of space here. So, to answer your earlier question, this is the glue I've been using. It seems to be well thought of, so my guess is probably that I didn't use enough of it. So I could have a couple of long strips like that. I think I probably want to have one of those and one of these in the middle. The idea is going to, and then maybe some twos in like this, and then try and get them to basically so you never get two woods the same colour lining up each other. Okay, there was only 1, 2. Is that too big? Is that a good size? Each of these would then take up a sort of a 6 space, as you're seeing here. I think I'd want to have. I was going to say I then want to have ends across the ends of it, like this. Getting quite big. It's getting fairly big, which isn't so much of a problem, except that it's now that is all of my long pieces. So take those out again, perhaps. something like, actually there's two going over there quite happily. So this sort of thing, and I'd need to make some wands, but I mean that's still a possibility. I can do that. Let's turn you slightly so you can see what I'm doing. We'll just bring you over here a little bit. Yeah, so we'd have something like this, and then these gaps in the middle of here I would fill in with pieces of this stuff, and I'd cut. So what I'd have to do is glue these onto the edges of this, probably sort of something like this, making sure they're large enough. There's a dodgy corner on that one, but never mind. So sort of, something like this to get the pattern, get a sort of a pattern, and then I'd be able to chop that down to be the correct. Then use. This would be another thing for the chop saw ideally, but if necessary, I could probably do this with the router to make that the right size and shape to go in there, and then do the same with this one. And those would have to be those are thicker pieces. Actually, I don't know if I've got those. Yeah, these aren't thick enough. That's problematic. And I could put them off-centered like that, and then have the other two from this could go across there. But I feel it's a little bit weird having that off-center. However, this is a pattern that I could use at least twice because I've got two more of these long ones, several more of these shorter ones. There's a 3 there. Okay, at this point I'm actually starting to run out, so I would need to make some more. Try and make some more of these squares. This piece now. How are you size? You're slightly smaller, which is annoying. Maybe I could put it on an edge and then reckon I'm going to route it inwards a little bit. But then my other plan after finishing that was assuming I've got enough of these pieces, then to have these run around the outside edge as well, like this. That was my original plan before I was thinking of using them around these pieces. So that makes a decent sized board. But yeah, I'm definitely only going to have enough wood to make 2 of them, which is a bit of a shame. I was hoping to get sort of 4 or, yeah, probably about 4 out of this, judging by the amount I had initially. But I think a lot of that is down to exactly how thick I cut all of these pieces as I go through and make it, as I was going through to make it, and how accurately I'm going to be able to then do the finishing off later. I've got quite a bit of this left as well. This is a reasonably sized piece, but it's slightly too narrow for these sorts of chunks. But that might mean it could go in around the edges of one of these. It's wider than that gap, and it's as wide as these gaps here and here. So that would certainly be a possibility. Yeah, design work is difficult, especially when you've got sort of things that are funny shapes. Yeah, it's a little complex, and my hope is that this is just going to be some module chunks that I can then just put together with lots of glue between them, and it'll all hold together reasonably nicely. But yes, it is getting a little bit, possibly a little silly. It's also getting a little bit chilly. But I also think most of this sort of work is stuff that I could probably manage even after I've lost the table saw. It's just then going to be trying to cut things down to sensible squares and yeah, working with much thinner pieces basically. But yes, it is a little bit complicated. I mean, the alternative is to forget those pieces entirely and just make a board that is like that. Possibly with the these pieces going around the outside of it as well. So something like this. Which would be relatively easy to do. Says optimistically. Yeah, like that. That's what I was trying for. And that'll get me 1. and then probably from all these offcuts, there's going to be enough for another one. Yeah, like that. So there's easily enough pieces to make two like that. But this is it's a bit smaller. It's a bit less interesting, and it doesn't use as much of the interesting and special wood. I think the next few minutes of stream are going to be me just messing around with all these pieces, trying to see if I can come up with something that looks sensible. I guess it's because these have come together as 3s rather than 2s. That makes me think. Well, that means the size it has to be that size, with 3 across with the 3s across the middle like this, and that sort of informs the size a little bit, should we say. That could be off deliberately so. And a couple of those in the middle of there. And I could do another one that just has one of these in the middle. So how many copies of this have I got? Two boards, and then no. So I can't. That wouldn't suddenly magically give me enough for a third. At least until I start chopping up this piece. And I've got 2 other pieces of smaller than this one, but still another 2 pieces left. So there is. I could go a bit further with this and just make lots and lots of singles, and try and work out how to get those together. I suppose I could even chop some of these up into pieces that fit onto the same grid as well. So there are lots and lots of possibilities for making these. I almost regret gluing all of these together yesterday before I got them down. Maybe I should have just taken them all down to be cubes and then started gluing them together. The problem is, if you glue them together when they're just cubes, they have a tendency to bow a bit. So one of the pieces I made, yes, this one. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but it bowed slightly as the glue was drying up, because it was a bit thinner and therefore didn't have the same structural rigidity. So it's not quite the right shape. And I did make some things to put round it, but I didn't realise it was going to need them quite so soon. Many questions. That's true. Drinks coasters are a good idea. Yeah, the slightly smaller is probably going to be better. It means you can't put an entire pizza on it, but you can still put some drinks on it and things. So when it was slightly smaller, which is a good size. Are you thinking sort of this sort of size, because this feels reasonably good, especially with the border as well. And I can make more of the border pieces without too much difficulty. So I've got another two of these planks, I think, somewhere. A bit thinner and not quite as nice as the ones I've already used, but I think they're perfectly usable. I was going to, if we're thinking of coasters from the start, I'd cut these a lot thinner. But, actually, no, that's maybe something I should do with the ones that I did cut a bit too thin, like this one. Again, have to make a decent number of them for coasters for it to be worth it. So I'd want to cut something like this in half that way, and that's going to be really difficult. I think that would be a job for a bandsaw, which I clearly don't have, as you've seen. Then also, actually, some of these offcuts could probably be turned into coasters as well, in a 2x2 sort of thing. Because these are a bit too thin to be used for the main project, but doing something like that could work. I'd want to then try and cut them to be circular, I suspect. I'm not quite sure how I'd do that, but I could probably find a way. Well, with the router, obviously, I'd make a template, glue it to the top, tape it to the top of it, and then run the router around the edge. Wouldn't be too difficult. Fiddly with clamps and things, but not actually difficult. But I definitely want to carry on and make some chopping boards. Cutting board, whatever. They're probably never going to. I would imagine they'd be used for presentation rather than cutting, or serving rather than cutting. But I have many ideas, and I don't know which of them are not terrible. But yeah, I feel like that is probably a good size. And does use the feature pieces, because it almost feels pointless doing all of this and not using any. If I don't use any of the wood, any of the sort of actually that goes in quite nicely there. If I made that slightly smaller, that would be almost spot on for 2 rows on its own with a little bit of padding on the outside. So that could work quite well. Yeah, I think I feel some ideas coming together here, but I also feel that it's going to be a lot of just sort of fiddling with pieces of wood and moving them around and stuff like that, and I don't know whether that's going to make good stream content. I'm also not, as I say, I'm also not quite sure what I want to do at the moment. So, yeah, a lot of it is going to be trying to get pieces down to match the grid size of all the pieces I've already got, and trying to go, hey, hang on a minute, why isn't this piece square? And all kinds of nonsense like that. And I don't know if I can talk my way through all of this. That actually really is almost exactly twice. It's double the grid size. Yeah. Given that it was completely coincidental, that is incredibly close. It's less than a millimetre out, and it is a tiny, tiny bit bigger as well. So that's perfect. All right. So this piece definitely is going to go in like that. I could then put another couple of these in like that, and maybe cut them down to be about the same. Do I have any of these that are remotely the same size? No, so I kind of don't want to use 2 of them on this same board. Actually, those are about the same size. Okay, take that out. That could work. Do I push these? No, do I push these in? No, that spoils the grid effect. So I think I don't do that. I just try and fill in around the outside of here with other pieces. These 3 work together really quite well, like that, to fit to make their own sort of square. And then if I stick some more of these on the side. Find the thinnest ones probably, because again most of it's going to be sacrificed. Or I use some of this. Again, not really any better. Yeah, I have, as I say, I have many ideas, and I'm not sure if any of them are good. But I do need to, I will need to start sort of from the bottom and just build it upwards. So I can't just start sort of throwing random bits and pieces together. I can start by gluing these together. Maybe actually start by shaving that one a little bit with the sander. Try and get it to actually be vaguely round. Sander isn't quite tangled up with everything else. I think I see why tortoise tools are popular. There we go. Yeah, so these 3 I think go really nicely together. Let's see what I can do with that. Move this out of the way for the moment. So yeah, I'll need to sand down this edge a little bit so that fits in nicely against. So it's actually a nice degree. Also, so the angles between them all add up to 180 or 360, whichever way that ends up being. Five by 5, yeah, it's possible. The problem is, problem with 5x5 is that these long pieces I've made are 6x1, and I don't really want to try and break them, because partly because I'm worried they might actually break. So given I've got these 6s, I think 6x4 is going to be the size I'm going to want to go for. Although I have ended up with 6x5 because of all these 3s I've got. Yeah, so I think 6x5 is probably going to be the size. If only in hindsight, and I was thinking this was probably going to be a bad idea because of how difficult it's going to be to glue them together, but I'm going to be ending up doing that anyway. My original thought was to make just lots and lots and lots and lots of these sort of pucks, the 1x1 pucks, and then just assemble them like a checkerboard. But but in theory, you're better off gluing them together into strips like I did, and then cutting them on the table saw, because that way you get a better. It's easier to stick them together because you're working with thicker pieces of wood at each stage, basically. But I've sort of ended up messing that one up anyway because I've gone down to having to put it together like this. Anyway, so it's all a bit silly. Let's try and sand this down. Slightly better, although I was a bit off centre on that. So let's try it again. Not convinced that's better. No, it's almost certainly worse. That's a bit better. Yeah, not too terrible. Right, let's. Yeah, I think I'll start off by gluing these together as a sort of as a piece. So at least I've got something made today, and then think about it from there on. The sanding didn't work brilliantly. I'll try and make sure I use plenty of glue this time. I'm pretty sure that's where everything went wrong before. Some there. Those two pieces together. Squish. And with that plan has together. That across there, and I need to straighten those two sides up. Squish. Actually, that should be. Yeah, there's a good amount of squeeze out all the way around, so I feel like I put in enough glue there. Probably. I feel like I should now give this a moment to set up a little bit before I then try and get another one. Before I try and get glue along here and clamp it together. Let's just go. No, the problem is this clamp needs to be rotated so that I can get the second clamp in, or clamp onto the end of it rather. Let's try that. Oh no, shifted. I knew fiddling with that was a mistake. I also knew I needed to. There we go, that's lined up again. I'm not entirely sure how well this is going to work, but I feel that I want to try it nonetheless, and just hopefully go in with some a bit of blind optimism, and then when it breaks, I can go through and try and learn how to glue these things up a bit better. Plenty of glue there, and I need another clamp. Let's get another small one, because using a big one for this feels a little silly. Also, just realised I'm still wearing the safety goggles, which is a bit unnecessary when I'm a bit unnecessary for gluing. There's one there. Put the clamp on, and then start tightening, and work on tightening it up. Maybe I do need a big one for this actually. No, I'll just fit. Just fit, rather. Not sure about how well this is going to come together in the end. It's, I mean, I've got those three pieces stuck together now, and there's a lot of glue around, so I think hopefully that means it's going to be a good one. I guess all I can really do now is wait for it to set, and then smooth the sides off and see how it's gone. So what I plan to do with this is once this is set, I can then add some other pieces around the edge of it to bulk it up to being the correct size to fit onto my grid. Whether that'll be some of these pieces or some of the offcuts from the other nice stuff I've been using, or maybe some of this perhaps. Well, this is kind of the wrong shape. But there are a few various bits and pieces I can use to get that to be a reasonable size and shape, I think and I hope. So once that's done, put that down on the floor over there to dry. Once that's set, it'll fit nicely in between a couple of rows. Basically, it'll fit nicely into that space in the middle there, with the padding around it, as I said. I may need to do a bit of fiddling to get it to fit nicely, to get it to fit as nicely as I want into there, but that's the basic idea. Fit into that gap, and then I can put some of these around the outside of it. So this is going to be there's going to be at least 3 or 4 stages to this glue up for that one. But that's that one. So I'll put these pieces aside and then think about what I want to do with the second one. So I've got another 2 long pieces there. Actually, which of these will make good? So those are exactly the same, and actually those 3 are all exactly the same. All right, we'll take those two out. I'll flip one of those round, and then they won't be the same. So we can make that, and then possibly along here we'll put 4 pieces. Make 3 there like that. So again, same size. Another piece of that one could go there, and I've got another 2 pieces of this that could potentially go in there, and I could glue all of these together and then slice it down so that this is an actual genuine rectangle, and then have it fit in and then pad it out to fit the gap here. That will produce 2 that are basically the same idea, which makes a certain amount of sense because it means I don't have to think about it too hard. So let's assume I'm going to do that for now. I'll put those aside as another potential one. And I can make a smaller one like this. maybe like that, a small square one. It's quite nice actually. I like that. And the pink wood in the middle looks quite good. I think actually that's a nicer piece, so maybe use that one. I've got another two 3 pieces here, and another big, and a couple of chunks of, and one of the bigger chunks left over as well. And then I've got but I'd also got these pieces that I could, certainly these ones I could chop off and make them into, these ones that stick out a bit more, those could be chopped off easily enough into another piece that's about the right size. If I chopped across here with the table saw, I feel that most of these would be a bit too thin to then survive the finishing process at the end, which is the problem with that. What else have I got? I've got this piece. This could be turned into several pucks. So yeah, let's keep that one as a small one. And then so I've got, this is basically those are the pieces I've got left that I've already cut. Then I've also got quite a lot of these off-cutty type parts that I can make almost anything with. I mean, I could use this one. I can make some narrow pieces and put them across the top here. This does, of course, all assume that I'm capable of producing something. I'm capable of putting something on the sides of these that will pad it out in a nice way. That is a bit of an unknown at this point, just exactly how I'm going to do that. But I dare say I've got quite a lot of this stuff, which I'm hoping to be able to use like that. Yeah, I think I've got some ideas now. I've got two big ones, one medium one, an idea for a small one that may or may not come together. I think this has some potential. Actually, this could be. I could fill these gaps in on the sides there, push those in, fill the gaps in on the sides with other wood, and then have something on the ends like that to give it a little bit more size and shape, and it could be a small one. Okay, I have some ideas at least, which is a good start. I'm just not quite sure how to actually progress with any of them. I think the next thing I can do, apart from just going around putting all my wood into little piles, which is nice but not particularly productive, is probably glue these together into a shape. How on earth was I going to do this? It wasn't going to be terrible. It was going to be the same basic idea as the other one, wasn't it? So maybe something like that. I think I'm trying to make this. This is gratuitously complicated. And the other possibility is to chop saw all of these pieces down to actually fit the grid. I mean, this one, as I said, could easily be a 2x2 piece, but then that puts it off centre. But if I had that there, and then I don't know, these pieces I could glue these together and make them into a 3x1. Maybe that. So it's got some knotty bits in the top and bottom of that. I'm not quite sure how much I approve of that. I'm not sure. Let's see if Chad's come up with any brilliant suggestions while I've been pondering it. Yep, good news is I can still count to 10, so that's going quite well. All of my ideas basically come down to how well am I going to be able to fill in these gaps around the edges later on. which is an odd question to be having, odd thought to be having, but I think is going to be what everything is going to be essentially based on. The good news is I'm probably going to start doing that with the router rather than with the table saw or the chop saw, so it's probably going to be a lot more accurate because it's an actual good tool rather than just a big tool. But I think while I've still got it, I should probably chop this up into as many of these pucks as I can, and just so I've got lots of spares for use for filling in gaps later on. So I think that's going to be my next project, my next brief thing. And this one actually, yeah, this piece is all practically big enough to be another puck. So I'll chop that one up into layers. This one also, yeah. I mean, now that my puck size has got slightly smaller, these are basically big enough, so I can get a few more out of this. This one isn't, but it might, but it will at least do halves. So I'll chop all of these up into into appropriate lengths to get them usable as pucks. And I should probably do this one as well, because as I say, I've got the saw for basically the rest of today. I have got it tomorrow as well, but I'm out tomorrow afternoon, which is a bit unfortunate. But right, yeah. I think that's a good working plan for now. Let's make lots more of basically these, and then I'll have something to play with as I go when I start trying to put things together and realise I could do with some fillers and some some extra pieces here and there. Okay, let's give that a try. So back over to the giant tool of doom, which is currently completely covered in in sawdust. I will remember to put the riving knife in place this time. Seems like a good idea. I mean, all of the stuff I've been cutting has been so small it hasn't really mattered, but I think it's still worth having. That up first. That makes me go, wait, my fingers are too close to that, so I'm going to unplug it. So that comes up, that goes in, tighten this up. Put it down, like that. There we go, it's down. Then flip it over. That's a lot of sawdust. Oh. The patio is now red instead of the slate colour it was before. I'm going to close the door to the house bit because otherwise I'll fill it up even more with dust. Right, safety last, first, at some point. Safety consideration. Actually, you know what, that's wrong. If I want to cut these into pucks, I should be using the chop saw, not the table saw, because they're already small. So it is the rule of thumb that somebody suggested yesterday was basically you want to be using if the piece of wood you're cutting is smaller than the blade, use the chop saw. If it's bigger than the blade, use the table saw. And I think that seems like quite a good what's the word? Rule of thumb. Also, the chop saw is easier and feels safer, so it's probably better to use. So that means, I've used up the clamp I was using as a stop block earlier as an actual clamp. So I guess that means I probably need to use one of the bigger clamps, and that's probably going to be a little bit ridiculous. But never mind. It actually fits between the table saw and the house, so you know, I'm not going to complain too much. It might be heavy enough that it pulls the whole thing out of vertical though, which is a little unfortunate. Okay, so firstly, I want to cut the wax off the end of these, because these are all the pieces they've been waxed on both ends because they're not brand new. I've worked quite a lot with them already, but they're a lot of the extra wax is still on them. So let's take the clamp back off, and then I want to just trim off a little bit off the end, basically almost as little as I can off the end of this, like that. But I need to plug it back in again first. So yeah, snick a little bit off the end of this, and then cut it up into chunks that are about the same thickness as all the pucks I've already got, so that I can make lots. So I've got a load of spares basically. Now this one is half the thickness of all the other ones, so I'm not going to be getting quite as I'm not going to be able to use it in all the places, but it might be quite nice for filling in some of the bigger gaps that I'm going to end up with as I go through. It does get a lot of break out of this stuff. Most of that I think might have been the wax rather than the wood, so not so bad. Need a bit more of that one. Okay, stop lock time. So, here's one I made earlier. This is a piece that's is what I've defined as being the correct size. So put that there. Oops. Bring the blade down. Put that up against the blade. Put the block up against put the clamp up against the edge of the wood. Tighten it. Put that in there against the edge of the clamp. Bring the blade down. Right. I'm going to bring that across there. It's going to come down there and drop it off there. Is that about right? Yeah, that looks good. Okay. This is going to be kind of awkward because I'm cutting very, very small pieces off. It was something I was aware was not going to be a great idea, but kind of need to. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be using this, so even in the worst case, I just end up damaging my random piece of MDF rather than anything I actually care about. Like that, in fact. That did not go quite as well as I hoped it would. Not sure why that grabbed, to be honest. Nicely smashed up this piece of wood, though. Maybe I should be using a table saw. No, table saw is definitely the wrong tool for this, though. Did I go too quickly through the wood? Not sure where I went wrong there. Let's break cleaning that up and we'll try again. This time I'm going to I'm just going to clamp the wood to the table saw. So it's not relying on me holding it in any way, shape or form. See if we can cut through it this time. It did feel like it just caught on a thicker bit of the wood or a stronger bit of the wood or something, I'm not sure. Any bright ideas, chat? Because I don't know quite what happened there. I mean, I feel like I was using the tool in the correct way. I wasn't doing something dumb and it just caught on it. So. Okay, my best guess is that I went through it too quickly, because that was absolutely fine. Now, I've still got a load of knackered wood that I need to cut off the end of here, before I can get to any of the good stuff, but alright, I'll try going through it a bit more slowly in the next attempt. How's that going to come through? Yeah, that'll get me back into the good wood that didn't get damaged by catching that. That's a bit weird. Yeah, perfectly. It's going to make it rather difficult. If I'm doing it like this, I can't use the clamp as a stop block, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to take much more off that before I'm unable to clamp it anyway. So this is going to be a problem. Let's spin it round. No, it's worse. Still got most of it to go. top. That's maybe 2 more pucks. One of them is a bit thick, but that's the thinnest I can get them with this saw, basically. It doesn't have the capability to go any thinner due to the how close I can get the anything into the blade. So, okay. There we go, a collection of the slightly smaller pucks. These ones, I hope I'll be able to use these to fill in some of the gaps I'm going to basically bound to end up with. I had another piece. Probably, I don't know where it's gone. If I throw it on the floor or something. There. There's one more I can do. That's one to use. No point having that one. Actually, maybe there is. Do the same with this one. This will give me some pieces to use to fill in gaps just as well in a similar but slightly different kind of way. Let's go up there. Maybe it's the waxy stuff that's causing these problems. That, yeah, gripped in a weird way. Put it off there and see if that's any better. That's okay.
there's the other piece I was looking for. I knew there was another piece, another full-size piece somewhere. Need a bigger tab. For this piece, I just want to trim off the end of it where it's covered in the waxy stuff. So I reckon this might be just about thick enough to be useful. That's not clamping nicely. Good now. No, it's not secure. I'm not trying that. This piece is obviously apparently too small for me to cut it. Might be able to sand the top of it down though, that's a possibility. Give that a try at some point. Okay, I have now finished cutting up all of the pieces that I started cutting up. There's still this one and two other slightly smaller pieces, much like this one though. And I'm wondering whether it's worth trying to turn these into those pups as well, just so that I've got loads and loads of them to play with. I'm not sure if I'll be bothered, which is a terrible attitude to take, but it's also true. This whole block is actually smaller than the blade, so I could probably do it all in the chop saw. Just keep pulling pieces out of that sort of thickness across here, and then flip them around, chop them all up into the right size, and the width is going to be a pain. Might need to do that on the table saw side. So yeah, I could chop it this way into strips. Use the table saw to cut them down to the right width, because this is presumably, this is because I trimmed all of these pieces down a bit. This is slightly too big along here. I'm going to end up with a lot of pieces in that colour though. That's a slightly dull brown colour. What else? What would the other colour be? Okay, so I've chopped down all of the wood that's in an interesting colour already. So we're now down to just there's the dark brown and the light brown at the end. So basically these two colours are the ones that are left, and they're both perfectly nice pieces of wood. I'm not criticising them, but they aren't quite as interesting as the reddy pinky ones. And I don't want to try not to completely dominate any of the chopping board with the less interesting coloured woods. But on the flip side, I think having a load of spare pieces might be useful. Ooh, chat has happened. Hello, chat. Hey, Max. Yes, I think I might have been being a bit too Yeah, I think there were a couple of times when I went in a bit too quickly, and maybe I'm not sure whether I didn't let it might have been I didn't let the blade spin up. You could be right, or it might have just been because I pushed it in. I think my guess and my gut feeling was that I lowered the blade too quickly into the woods rather than going slowly and carefully. No, I mean I think I was standing clear about the same distance clear of the machine the whole time. Nothing particularly spectacular has happened. The blade did catch a couple of times in the pieces of wood, and it was a bit of a sort of it made a loud noise and surprised me, but I didn't feel it was dangerous. So I don't think I'm being any more cautious than I was before, or at least if I am, it's just sort of I don't know. Maybe I'm more cautious on a Saturday than I am on a Friday. Who knows? Yeah. So I think having a load more of the basic pucks is going to be quite useful, but I am aware that sticking all of these together is going to be a bit of a mission. However, it is a mission that I can continue with after I've lost the table saw, so probably worthwhile. I do wonder, actually, looking at this is actually bigger than most of the pucks, I think. Yeah, I could totally get another piece out of this, but I don't know if I'd be able to grasp it properly in the maybe I could. But there. All right, let's see if I can make one out of this as well. Actually, no, I take it back. Having now put it on very carefully against the corner, it's not. Oh, this one's big enough though. This might be interesting. Let's try this. I want to put it there and there and there. Yeah, going down slowly feels much more reasonable. Again a bit. I think I went in a bit too quickly. On the downside, that means that's now too small. Right, that's useless. Oh well, never mind. Also that one. That one's a good one though. Take that. So yes, I think the next part of this is I'm going to render this down into the little square puck things, because I think this is going to give me plenty of pieces to play with when I realise inevitably fairly soon into the rest of the process that I've run out of stuff. Yes, that's what I'm doing. Or I'm using a clamp. I'm clamping a clamp rather than clamping a piece of wood. But yes, basically what I'm doing. So over on this side, there's a mark there that I can run up to, and that makes them the right thickness. Clamping a piece of wood to it is a good idea. It's better than using a clamp. It's a bit bigger. So let's do that. If I can find enough. The problem is finding somewhere to clamp onto with this, because there aren't any flat edges anywhere. Which is why I ended up just putting a clamp over, because the clamp itself is big enough to clamp to. If that makes sense. I don't think this is going to work. No. So that's not a straight edge back there to clamp onto. It's almost as if it's designed to try and stop you from doing that. It seems unlikely, but so instead I've got a line on here that I've been running this up to, which is in about the right place. I'm just clamping the whole piece of wood onto the other side over here, and that has been working quite well. Although now with this piece it's too much, it's too big for the small. Silly little clamp. Actually, maybe this would work. I mean, it's ludicrous, but no, it's slipping on the back because it's a funny angle. I can't clamp up to that. I can clamp over here like this, and that works quite nicely. Hold it steady against the back. Although, to be fair, even the back wobbles a little bit. Like I was saying yesterday, I don't think this table saw this whole thing is really made for precision work like I'm trying to do with it. I think it's made for cutting timbers for making houses out of or something like that, which is a bit of a shame because it means a lot of my angles aren't as accurate as they could be if I use something a bit better. But it sort of basically works. So. Yeah, because that's now locked steadily hard onto the back there, but you can see it wobbling quite a bit when I do this. Maybe using the other side of the table saw a bit better. That isn't particularly accurate a sense. Yeah, I think I'm not sure. Oh, so it's the piece not being secure. That does make some sense. It's also starting to get dark now, so I think I'm probably going to have to finish pretty soon. But I would like to turn this into smaller pieces before I do. Yeah, there is nothing to. There's a little bit in here that looks fairly clampable, actually. Maybe I'll try that. This bit, because this bit is rigid, and there's a 90-degree bit in there. So let's give that a try. Yeah, okay, that's pretty rigid. Okay, I now have a suitable stop lock. Now, for the first cut, I actually don't want to use it. I want to snick off just a little bit to take out this the waxy stuff on the end of it. So that's going to be about there, I think. My hands are miles from the blade, so I think it's probably going to be okay. Put the glasses back on. That was a lot more dust than any of my previous cuts, but then it was over a much bigger piece of wood, so that makes sense. So now I can push that up against there. Now it's basically secure because it's pushed up against the stop block here. It's against the back here, so it can't go. Yeah, so there's no freedom for it to go anywhere. Nice swirly pattern marks on there. I think that is from the grain of the wood, not from the way I was cutting it. But it almost looks like it's from the way I was cutting it, which is amusing. I think I'm going to do about 2 more, well maybe 1 more before I have to use something else to hold the wood and worry about my fingers. Now the last one, which is difficult because it's sort of backwards, but I think, yeah, that's holding it well enough, and again, hands well out of the way, which is the most important thing. Alternatively, not because those are in the way. Oh wait, I've done this wrong. Oh well, I shouldn't have turned it round, but now I've kept the side with all the wax on it. Never mind, so, I can use it if I have to. Yeah, that was stupid. I should have kept the wood the same way round rather than flipping it over, because now I've got the waxy piece to deal with, whereas otherwise I'd have had another nice clean piece. But never mind. Next thing is going to be to cut these down to the actual puck size. This is going to require cuts in both dimensions. I think if I do the lengthways one first, so I'll bring this in to about here, and just... Maybe not actually. No, let's just cut them to length, and then I'll deal with the width on the sander later some other time, because that's... I don't feel that I can just snick little bits off the edge of this with the chop saw. It's just not going to work. So I now want to get this width. And that goes about there. That cuts against that. That. I think that's in the right place, so put that there, bring the blade down, and it, yeah, that seems about right. So I've got 4 good pieces, and one less good piece and 1 short piece. Okay, well I can make, at least I can make sort of half a dozen probably, at least a dozen out of that. Too small a piece on the outside there, so it pinged off, and it wouldn't really matter, except when it went, it damaged the edge of this piece a little bit. That said, I am going to need to sand these, but not in that direction, so that's not going to help. Ah, that's a shame. Slightly smaller. What's going on? Oh, my stop block has clearly slipped because the last 2 pieces were slightly bigger than the first 2. I think. confused. Can't even find the grain back on this one. Yeah, that's definitely moved. Probably when the thing kicked on that last piece of the other one. No, it's about right now. I don't think it was moving actually, I think it was just the dust on the top that was moving each time I nudged it, and I was worrying that meant the whole thing was moving, but it wasn't. Okay, so I think it's now getting dark, so I think I'm going to have to stop before I lose the ability to see what I'm doing. So, thank you for watching though. I've got this far. As you saw earlier, I've sort of designed, in inverted commas, 3 chopping boards, two big ones, one slightly smaller one, and something a bit smaller still. And now with all of these extra pieces, maybe I'll be able to think of something else to do with them as well. So we'll see how I get on with that. But that's going to be another time when I can actually see what I'm doing a bit better. And also, to actually be honest, I can probably start moving inside now because I'm not going to be using the power tools to quite the same extent. But yes, I think this is going to be the end of this stream because I've got to a sort of a stopping point. Lots and lots of pieces of wood cut up into all kinds of useful shapes. Oh, back and down, I see what you mean, yeah. Right, okay, yeah, cutting board, yes, all right, I'll talk about that a little bit. So these pieces I've put together here on the table, this is one of the I've been playing around with designs, trying to get an idea of how I want to put together. But the idea of the end grain cutting board is you cut all the pieces down so the edges that face upwards, like this bit, are all end grain because that's better for knives to go onto because you don't slice the grain, you don't slice through the wood. It's better for the knives, it's better for the chopper board, and it can, if you with a bit of luck, it'll look prettier as well. So I've got 2 different types of wood here. There's this stuff around the edge, which are the blocks I bought and then have been spending all the time on the table saw and the chop saw, cutting down into these squares and gluing them together like this. And then there's these pieces, and these are sort of slightly more personal because they came from some logs in my parents' garden. So I'd like to use as much of that as I can. And then the idea is going to be that I'm going to put these together and then sort of pad out the size and shape of these with some of these bits of wood to make them a little bit, to make them fit into the spaces in the middle of these grids. And then hopefully the plan is to glue the whole lot together and then smooth it out with a router and then sand it down up to ludicrously shiny, oil it and so on, and then hopefully it'll be ready. And how long it's going to take me, I have no idea, but it's going to be a fairly big job. So we shall see how it goes, and hopefully I'll have them finished for Christmas. But if not, I shall be giving people IOUs and saying, yes, I shall give you your gift later once I've actually finished the damn thing. But yeah, the messing around with these, trying to come up with sort of sensible patterns that make sense and look reasonably nice is going to be interesting. But hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to come up with something that looks good. I think I probably won't be streaming any more of it because a lot of this now is just going to be me sort of gluing a couple of bits together and then leaving it for a while to set, and then coming on, gluing some more together, and so on. So it's not going to be particularly good. It's not going to be interesting content like me playing with power tools and trying to cut my fingers off is. So I think this will be the last stream for this project. But I should be producing videos probably once I've completed it and I've got a bit of an idea of how the whole thing's going to go. She'll let you know at the end.
So I've done a little bit of smoothing with the router. It sucks, but it does just about work. I would use a planer, but I haven't got one. There's a lot of the stuff I do on this channel. I don't have a workshop, as you can clearly tell by the fact that I'm doing all this in the garden. So a lot of the projects I'm doing here are rather limited by the actual tools I have available. So yes, I would totally use a planer, but I haven't got one. If you want to post me one, then I'll use it. Yeah, I'm a bit limited by the technology of my time, as they say. And it's, yeah, ideally perhaps I'd go off and find a workshop I could use that had things like had all these tools, and if I could do that, then I wouldn't have hired a crappy job site table saw and be getting all kinds of dodgy non-90-degree angles, which is making everything a lot harder. Oh, a hand planer perhaps would. I don't know. I've never had much luck with planes. They always seem to be. They never seem to be. Then I don't know. I think it's probably a lack of skill, to be honest, or at least a lack of a good plane. But either way, I've never had much luck with them, which makes me a little bit unenthused by the idea of trying it. But I might give it a shot. Yeah. I know that smoothing with a router. I mean, I say smooth. It's not really. The router level of smoothing is taking everything down to being within a couple of millimeters of everything else, and then I'll use the sand, and then I'll use the random orbit sander to bring everything down to actually being smooth. I don't expect it to come out being properly smooth from using the router, but it'll get it to close enough that it can be sanded without it taking forever. That's my plan, anyway. I have no idea. I'm not aware of any hardware stores that will let you come in and play with their planers. Such a thing might exist. I don't know, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to finish the stream now. So thank you for watching. We can carry on discussing this on Discord. So if you want to come along and give me any good ideas, because there are probably a lot of things I haven't thought of. Because as I say, I'm kind of making it up as I go along. Yeah, I shall be come along, join the Discord, and join the conversation there. So yeah, I think that's probably going to be more productive, and I think it's getting dark, and I want to get things packed up before it gets properly dark. So, as I say, thank you for watching. This has gone pretty well. I've managed to use the saw for quite a long time without cutting any of my fingers off, or without actually injuring myself at all. Although, well, as I say that, I've got a small scratch on my thumb that bled a little bit earlier, but that wasn't from the table saw. I think I just scraped that on the edge of a piece of wood. So, no actual injuries worth talking about, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.